We're just going to read a scary headline in panic. We're going to tear it apart, layer by layer, and figure out exactly what the underlying data is actually trying to tell us. I mean, just look at that raw number, negative $26 billion. That represents a massive 39% drop in Robinhood's reported aggregate crypto volume. We're talking about tumbling from $66 billion in Q1 all the way down to $40 billion in Q2. When the financial media sees a sequential plunge of this absolute magnitude, the alarm bells don't just ring, they absolutely deafen you. And it sets the stage for a seriously compelling financial mystery. Like, where on earth did all that trading traffic go in just 3 months? Naturally, seeing a vanishing act like that leads everyone in the market to ask the exact same question. Is Robinhood's retail crypto empire actually crumbling? Are everyday Main Street traders really just abandoning the platform in droves, packing up their digital wallets and bailing? Okay, let's dive into this. Because to actually solve this mystery and to figure out if the core retail app is in real trouble, we first need to make sure we understand exactly what it is we're measuring here. So what we're talking about here is notional volume. And I gotta say, I absolutely love the analogy the source material uses for this. Think of notional volume like a traffic counter on a super busy highway. It's just tracking the total dollar value of the trades passing back and forth across the exchange. It is not, and honestly, this is absolutely crucial to keep in mind as we go through the rest of this, it is not a measure of the actual revenue or the profit the company makes from those trades. It's literally just the raw traffic passing through the toll booth. All right, knowing that we're essentially just measuring raw traffic, let's break down that terrifying $26 billion drop. When we actually split the data by the trading venue, the real culprit behind that scary headline just reveals itself. A staggering $20 billion of that decline, which is 77% of the total drop, by the way, came entirely from Bitstamp. The Robinhood app only accounted for $6 billion, or just 23% of the sequential drop. With just that one piece of context, suddenly this whole narrative that everyday retail traders are fleeing the Robinhood app starts to look pretty darn shaky. Section 1. Blame it on Bitstamp. Institutional versus retail realities. Let's get into it. To really get why mixing these two platforms into one giant aggregate headline number is so wildly misleading, we have to look at who is actually using them. Robinhood closed its acquisition of Bitstamp back in June of 2025, and Bitstamp just has a completely different DNA than the Robinhood app. While Bitstamp does have over 500,000 funded retail customers, it also houses about 5,000 funded institutional customers. And here's the real kicker. Those few thousand institutions, they drive the vast majority of Bitstamp's volume. Because Bitstamp's volume is just so incredibly top-heavy with institutions, its trajectory is absolutely not a direct measure of how highly engaged everyday retail users are on the Robinhood app. They're just two totally different beasts. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when those massive institutional whales decide to pull back from the market. Check out Bitstamp's individual volume cliff right here. They went from $42 billion in the first quarter, plunging straight down to $22 billion in Q2. That is a brutal, staggering 48% drop-off. You see, when institutional money decides to sit on the sidelines, it doesn't just quietly trickle out. No way. It leaves a massive crater in the volume metrics. But contrast that steep, terrifying cliff with the Robinhood retail app over the exact same time period. The app went from $24 billion in Q1 down to $18 billion in Q2. Okay, yes, it's a decline, and obviously no company wants to see their numbers go down, but come on, it is a much gentler slope compared to the massive institutional shock we just saw on the Bitstamp side. The core retail base is actually showing some real resilience here. Seeing them directly side by side like this really drives the point home, doesn't it? Bitstamp suffered a massive 48% drop, while the Robinhood app saw a 25% drop. When you take these two completely different customer mixes, one driven by a handful of massive institutions, the other driven by millions of everyday retail traders, and you fold them into a single aggregate headline number showing a 39% drop, it just heavily muddies the actual picture. It makes the retail app look far weaker than it really is. And this right here is exactly why we can never take aggregate headlines at face value. We always have to pop the hood and look at the engine. Moving on to Section 2, the WonderFi complication. A second comparability break. Let's see what's going on here. Now, what's really interesting is that our investigation doesn't just stop there. Because even that 25% retail drop we just talked about, it isn't perfectly clean. According to Robinhood's Q2 disclosure, the metric for the app actually began including executed crypto trades from WonderFi customers starting in June. So if we trace this timeline, Q1 was just your standard historical app volume, but right at the tail end of Q2. Wait, actually, look at what happened in June. They suddenly folded in an entirely new group of trades. They basically added 1 month of a brand new reporting perimeter right before the quarter officially closed its books. Because of this sudden WonderFi injection in June, the app's 25% sequential decline is actually a bit skewed. It's one of those real aha moments for anyone doing financial analysis. It is not a perfectly like-for-like measure when you're comparing Q1 to Q2. Honestly, the retail decline might have actually been slightly worse if WonderFi hadn't been added in to prop up that final critical month of the quarter. This is exactly why we literally have to read the footnotes and obsess over the underlying data. The devil, as they always say, is in the details.
All right, Section 3, Beyond the Headline, the Missing Revenue Picture. Let's bring it all together.
Let's move to how this builds into the broader financial reality for the company. We've basically solved the mystery of the missing volume, but we actually still have a major blind spot. While we can see exactly how the trading traffic is split between the app and Bitstamp, Robinhood keeps the actual financial rewards pretty tightly under wraps. See, crypto revenue is reported at the consolidated top company level. That means Bitstamp's individual profit contribution, completely unknown to us. The app's individual profit contribution, also unknown. On top of that, if a customer moves their trading activity from the app over to Bitstamp or vice versa, that internal migration just isn't tracked in this venue split at all. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. What we've been analyzing today is a super fascinating snapshot of where the trading traffic was physically recorded. And yeah, it's absolutely essential for understanding platform activity and user engagement, but it is not the full financial story. A massive drop in institutional traffic on Bitstamp might look absolutely terrifying on paper, but without knowing the exact profit margins on those specific institutional trades versus the margins on retail trades on the app, we simply can't definitively say how badly this slump actually hurt Robinhood's bottom line. Volume, like we said with our traffic counter analogy, does not equal revenue. Which leaves us with this final thought. We started this explainer with a screaming headline about a catastrophic $26 billion vanishing act. But by actually breaking down the data, separating the institutional whales from the everyday retail traders, and, reading the fine print about that WonderFi edition, we found a much more nuanced and, frankly, much less terrifying reality. The retail app is holding a lot steadier than those aggregate numbers would have you believe. So, next time you see a terrifying headline about a massive financial drop, are you going to take the numbers at face value, or will you dig into the venue split to find the real story?